Um, all right, we are live. I am Aaron West of the Special Ones. I'm here with Adam Digby and Sam Lewis. How you boys doing today, man?
Hi guys,
Oh,
all well?
fantastic over here. Glad to be on.
Yeah, we've got all the nonsense out of the way. We can get started. Sam Lewis is a tell us a little bit about yourself, Sam. What are you doing these days? I know you're teaching. You're still writing for
Football
go
Italia,
ahead.
yeah. It's
Football
okay.
Italia.
It's all right. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not that offended. Um, yeah, I do some writing for Football Italia. Appear on some various podcasts. I'll do this a little bit more often. I am teaching now, telling the future generation about English and Macbeth and stuff, which apparently is much less depressing than I'm making it out to be at the moment. It's fine. So no, don't feel sorry for me. It's okay. Anyway, yeah, Football Italia mainly, a bit of writing here and there. I'm hoping to do a little bit more as the season goes on, but we'll see how whether I'm being strung up by the kids by like Halloween. We'll see. So thanks for having me though. It's great to be here.
Are you trying to corrupt the kids to the good word of the Milan fandom?
I wouldn't call it corruption, mate. I think that is not the best topic to begin such a conversation. I'm not saying anything. There's two against one over here, so I mean, like I know you guys aren't good with the maths, so we'll keep it to that.
I brought that on myself.
Sorry,
I brought that on
sorry.
myself. All
But I'm
right.
not, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to corrupt anyone. I'm actually trying to just keep the optimism high from the Milan end, which is proving rather difficult. But this summer I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, but I'm feeling like talking to you guys might take me down a peg a little bit. So we'll see.
I won't be too hard on you. Adam, it's tough to keep up which publications you're writing for these days. Every day I see your byline on a different website. How's it going, man?
Going good, man. I'm trying to keep busy and not be as depressed as Sam. It's funny because corruption and Milan just go together in a sentence, and credit to him, credit to him as well, man, because he said there's two of us. Usually when it comes to Juve, Milan fans knock two off, so you think he would be on this podcast by himself.
I think we started this one out on an antagonistic note, but let's just jump right into it. So obviously this coming weekend, tomorrow actually, it's Friday. We will be kicking off the Serie A season. It's finally here. We've sat through a whole summer full of transfer rumors, done deals. Since the transfer window is winding down, we'll talk a little bit about it. Who do you guys feel has done the best business in this window thus far? Feel free to name your own team, name whoever. Sam, we'll start with you.
It's hard to look past Juventus. I think just you can see the gaps that left behind with Pirlo going, with Vidal going, with Tevez. That's a massive disparity in quality in terms of like you couldn't take those three players away from any other side in the league, nay any other side in the world without expecting some significant drop off. And I think the replacements they've brought in have been as good as you can expect with a team of that stature and budget. I think when fit, Khedira could rival any other player in the league as one of the best midfielders in Serie A. I think Dybala, as you were mentioning off air, is one of the best young players in the league now. Europe, Regani could be Italy's first choice centre back, hopefully alongside Romagnoli in the next 5 years. That's another great thing. You guys, like most people, forget that they've already locked in deals for Zaza. We've got Alexandro is another one. I mean, he's in an ideal world, he could be Juventus's, Marcelo sort of figure, that rangy sort of left back who can solve that problem in terms of longevity after Evra's gone. I think they've just had a terrific transfer period. They're one of the very few teams, which is strange to say, that actually looks at a problem, identifies a player to fit that need, and brings that player in with very little fuss. So few teams actually do this, which is a strange thing to say because it's just the logical move to say, okay, we need a left back. Who's the best left back available? Sign that guy, get that money in. That's what they're asking for. No problems. It's amazing how the transfer window works when you just identify needs and get them in. And I think Juventus have done that superbly, all things considered. So they're my pick.
All right. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. It seems so simple as fans. We sit on Twitter every day and argue about it. Like we know what our teams need. We look at them every day. We see, oh, our team needs a left back. Why haven't we signed a left back? Why are we signing defensive midfielders, or vice versa? And it's so interesting to see that there are very few teams, and not even just Serie A, around the world. Like you see
No.
fans moaning every day that their teams are signing players they don't need and not filling the needs that are there. So I think you're very right. Adam, what do you think? Who's done the best business so far?
I don't want to disagree with Sam, to be honest. I'm going to say Juve, but I think if you're trying to look beyond that, because if you do, it's kind of dull if we all sit here and talk about how great Juve has. I can do that for
I
all
certainly
day.
don't like doing that. I'm not okay with that, to be honest.
I think probably behind that, I would say Inter have done really, really well. I think just like we were saying about Juve, I think they've done exactly the same thing. I think they've looked at their team, they've seen what they need to do, they've got rid of some players who they clearly don't see fit, like the likes of Shaqiri and Podolski, who they let go. And they've brought in players that they need. I think Kondogbia is a fantastic pickup by them. I think that really, really changes the shape of their team. I think it changes the way they play. I think it gives them everything they were lacking last season. It gives them some drive in midfield. It gives them youth in midfield. And it gives them just a guy who's just going to do what needs to be done. He's going to shield the defence. He's going to get forward. We saw him from Monaco last year. He's a fantastic player, and he could be a star for a long, long time to come for them. I think selling Kovacic for 20 million more than they bought him for, when Kovacic is a fantastically talented player, don't get me wrong, if he blossoms into the player he promises to be, 35 million euros is fantastic, but he's no better than he was when he arrived in Italy 3 years ago. And to make a 20 million profit on that guy and then reinvest that on players that they need, I don't see that as being bad business at all. I think Inter need to win now. They need to certainly be looking at getting back into the top three almost immediately. And guys like Kondogbia are going to help them do that. I don't think they've got time to wait around for Kovacic to develop.
Yeah, I agree with you. This summer's been very interesting. I think going into this 2015-2016 season, this is probably the most parity we've seen in Serie A in 10 years, a decade maybe. Roma's made some really, really strong moves, finally bringing in a top-class striker in Edin Dzeko. They've brought Mo Salah in, who's been, aside from his tenure at Chelsea, he's basically dazzled wherever he's gone. Plenty of pace, trickery. He's got to add a little bit more end product, but they've made some very strong signings. You spoke about Shinter. Spoke about them.
Nice, man.
And Kondogbia is a hell of a player. I've admired him for a while. He's a great signing for them. Especially also in the back, Jesus Murillo is one of those guys who showed well, especially in Copa America, who's going to be, if he continues to play with the way he has shown, he's going to be a really, really strong signing for them. We've got Lazio looking stronger. Milan have made quietly some good signings as well. We can't overlook them. I know it's not. It seems doom and gloom in the red half of Milan, but we can't overlook they've made some good moves, and hopefully in the last week or so of the transfer window, we can get a couple guys in and really maybe complete that squad. But Serie A this season, it's looking good. This is not a season that Juventus fans can take for granted and just expect to coast to the title, I think.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. To pick up on your point about Roma, the only concern I've got is how does it actually work on the pitch? I think you look at what they had last year, and they needed someone to score goals, and Edin Dzeko is perfect for that. But Rudy Garcia's not shown a willingness to play any other formation than 4-3-3, and that means dropping Francesco Totti. And can he? Will he? Dare he? Will Totti accept a role on the bench watching Edin Dzeko? Will the fans accept that? Until they go and do it, I'm not convinced. I think Roma have had a fantastic transfer window, but it's what you do on the pitch on a Sunday that counts. And until they do it, I think we're in the same boat as last year, where you look at when Conte left, everyone is the gap has closed. When it came to a Sunday afternoon, the gap was exactly the same as it was 12 months earlier. And I think until Roma prove me wrong, I'm really sceptical that what they've done in the summer translates to what they do on a Sunday.
I think that's a fair point. I think one of the many issues for me with Roma is that they lack a lot of defensive depth as well. I think that the sale of Romagnoli, though they never actually benefited from really having him being out on loan at Sampdoria, but them selling Romagnoli and Yanga Mbiwa, I think that's a big loss. You're relying on Castan and a couple of other players back there, which I'm not too sure about. Them putting 6 past Sevilla is great, and Dzeko looked marvellous, but they also conceded 4. And we know, we watch Italian football, the best defence usually is the best team at the top of the table, and that's something that Roma knew quite well just 2 years ago. They had the best defence during that 10-match winning streak, and it worked quite well for them. Obviously, when it dropped off, Juventus sped back ahead. So I think Dzeko, surely in an ideal system, if you're Rudy Garcia, you have to work out a way to play both Totti and Dzeko. Surely in a 4-2-3-1, maybe with Totti in behind seems the obvious solution, with maybe Salah on the left and a Pjanic maybe on the right, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a Roma fan, so I don't want to upset anybody by shouting out these sort of tactical ideas. But you have to get all your best players on the pitch for you to be able to compete. With the losses of Vidal, Pirlo, and Tevez, obviously Juventus are on paper. There is going to be no surprise if they win 38 league games in a row, as far as I'm concerned, because nothing surprises me with their domination in Italy over the last 4 years. But on paper, it looks like they're as weakest as they have been recently in terms of the lack of veteran leadership. So Roma should really take advantage of that. Rudy Garcia's got to put his thinking hat on and think, well, how do I close the gap properly? Not like you said, like in the transfer window, it looks great, but when it comes down to it, the big games, how do I manage to close the gap? And surely Dzeko up top, Totti in behind, play everybody involved, just get all your best players and just go for it. Surely that has to be the way that Roma adapt this season. Could be Garcia's last if it doesn't.
Yeah, I think on the Roma side, Kevin Strootman being fit and firing is one of the biggest keys for them, because he is such an incredibly talented midfielder. And you've got Nainggolan, obviously Pjanic. But I think for them, it's exactly like you said, it's Rudy Garcia putting the pieces together, because we've seen they have the talent, but his technical flexibility is something that is lacking. We've seen Roma fans moan about it on Twitter. And I think this is a make-or-break year for Rudy Garcia. If he has this team and isn't able to mount a strong title challenge, at least stronger than last year, I think the Eternal City is going to be in an uproar. We've seen how their fans can play such a big part in a Roma season. It's make or break with those guys. If Rudy Garcia is not on point this year, the Wolves will be at his heels. And now on the other side of the Eternal City, Lazio is quietly putting together a nice little team. How do you guys feel about Lazio's chances this season?
I like them. I like Lazio. I don't think they're going to be as good this year as they were last year, though. I think if they manage to qualify for the Champions League, that could be one of the things that actually undoes them a little bit. They haven't made a huge amount of additions. Their squad, if you look at what starting 11 left the last game last season, you would imagine that with everyone healthy, it's probably going to be pretty much largely unchanged. And I think with the addition of an extra competition, that could be quite a strain. I could see a little bit of a drop-off. I don't know how Stefano Pioli does in second seasons. I'm not sure whether there's a statistic for that, but if without actual big additions, we could see a bit of a drop-off, especially with the likes of Napoli having the invigoration of a new coach. I think they could miss out on Champions League football this season. I like them in general. I think Lazio are always one of those sides when you talk about the top 3, top 4, top 5. You talk about the 2 Milan clubs. You talk about Roma, obviously much more, and you talk about Juventus. They do seem to take advantage really of the idea that tend to left behind a little bit, and that's sort of like the underdog label for them. I like Lazio starting 11. I don't think there's a lot of depth thereafter, and I think eventually, and these words will curse me because I feel like I've been saying them to myself privately for the last couple of years, surely Klaus is going to slow down at some point, right? Surely. Like, at some point we have to get to the year where he wakes up one day and he's not going to bang 15. Like, I've been saying it about Luca Toni, and that's never happened. I love Luca Toni, but surely I'm going to say this might be the year where they need to turn over the leaf to another striker. But at the moment, I currently can't really see one, and I think that's where Lazio will struggle. So I think I like their team anyway, but I just think top 3 again might be a bit of a push.
Yeah, Adam?
Yeah, for me, I pretty much agree with what Sam says. I think if they do qualify for the Champions League, if they get through their playoff, I think we could see the last week of the transfer window being busy for them. I think they've purposely waited to see what happens with that before they do their business. And I think that's a smart thing to do. You don't want to upset the team that you've got if you've only got the same competitions. By the same token, again, agreeing with Sam, I think the teams immediately below them, the 2 Milans and Napoli as well, Lazio really finished 3rd by default last year. Fiorentina and Napoli were both better than them. Should have finished above them, but really struggled to put any consistency together. And Lazio were just 6.5 out of 10 every week, and that was enough to get third when they probably didn't deserve it overall anyway. As for Klose, I don't know. I think he comes off the field at the end of the last game of the season and he just gets frozen until the first game of the next season. It's the only explanation. He's the youngest 37-year-old out there. I mean, it's the same age as me, man, and I'm not doing that every Sunday, I'm telling you. And Luca Toni is exactly the same.
Man, I'm 22, and I could not even remotely compete. Like, there is nothing. It's just all over. I don't think I've ran since year 9 PE. That was like 8 years ago. So it's amazing. It's incredible.
Now let's move over to Milan. Sam, how are you feeling about this season?
Better than this time last year. I'll say that for nothing. I think it's the difference with the funding. That obviously Milan have made a deliberate attempt this time to wake up and say, okay, apparently if we'll get better if we buy actual players with actual quality instead of just selling all our best ones, replacing them with nothing, and then wondering why it's all going to fall apart. I think Romagnoli, if that works out, that is a terrific buy, provided it makes a development. It's a lot of money for a central defender, but I wrote in a couple of articles, and it's been the Twitter discussion, that is really the price that you pay for a talented defender, especially in today's market, especially if you're a club without Champions League football. We're not in any right to complain. I think Carlos Bacca, I was a bit unsure when he first arrived. I thought 30 million was a large figure for someone that seemed to be a system striker rather than a talented one in his own right. I would have been much more happier on the onset about Jackson Martinez. But since I've seen him, he has lots of qualities that I wasn't really that aware of. He seems stronger than I expected. He's quicker than I expected. He seems more keen to dribble than I expected. I really did see him as a sort of fox in the box sort of finisher type. He's proven me completely wrong already. Provided that's the case, him and Luis Adriano could be a nice pairing. Milan still need to improve the midfield, and the central defence, even with Romagnoli, is still a bit of an issue because the next guy is Eli, and if he makes a leap, that's fantastic, but it's not a guy you want to depend on. So overall, I think Milan are in a better position than they were this time last year. I think Champions League football has to be the expectation, but I will say their best signing all summer was Sinisa Mihajlovic, because you look for the last 2.5 years, they haven't looked even remotely like a well-coached team. Like, even for a minute, even in that 45 minutes when Seydorf first coached, and I convinced myself that because they looked relatively organised, this was the saviour. That's not been the case at all. But you look at the changes Mihajlovic has made already. I mean, he said, if Mexes doesn't play the way I want him to play, he's not playing. If Menes doesn't play the way I want him to play, he's not playing. If the fans boo Churchy, they can shut up. I'm going to play Churchy anyway. Get behind your team. Can you imagine Seydorf saying that? Allegri saying that? Inzaghi saying it just doesn't happen. Mihajlovic has come in away from the Milan bubble and into this day. He's got a completely different mentality, and it works. He's already united the team. He's playing the my way or the highway situation, which is exactly what these spoilt, underperforming players need. This is a team with talent but without any dedication. Sinisa Mihajlovic has come in and appears to be uniting this team. We talk about, they're not good. Like, you look at Bonaventura, talented player, Honda, Menes, talented players in the right system with the right coach. I think if they're all united together, this top three could be a feasibility, but it all does come down to Mihajlovic and how well he approaches. But right now, I am kind of positive, kind of optimistic. If Zlatan arrives, then we're having a different conversation, but we'll see.
Yeah. Now, the question is, can they put Mihajlovic on the squad list and sub him in for free kicks?
Oh, I hope so. That would be incredible, wouldn't it? I'm going to be tweeting, let Mihajlovic take it for every single free kick of the new Serie A season. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Be prepared for that. You might as well just mute me every Milan game.
I'll be right beside you, honestly. I will be right beside you. But
it's an underrated aspect. What he could do to Keisuke Honda's game is actually quite an interesting subplot, to be honest. I think as well, this is the first season where he's actually playing in his position. Another thing that's like, you forget that the other coaches have been here, like, everyone that's got here has seen Honda as a winger, and he's clearly so far removed from that and his style.
Yeah, I never saw him play winger a day before he stepped foot in.
ever. Suddenly everyone decides that he's like Di Maria. Like, he's not Di Maria. Stop pretending he's Di Maria. At best, he could be a Hernanes type figure. That sort of modern number 10 that could be very, very beneficial to us. But we'll all see. I like the idea of Menez back there as well. I think there's lots and lots of options here, but the impact Mihajlovic will have on this team in comparison to the other two. It's like, I think I read an article before, I think it might have been Bill Simmons actually, when he's talking about the improvement from being awful to like league average is the biggest leap that any team in the world can make in any league, in any sport. You look at the leap that Milan could make from league average, like to be dire defensively in midfield, to just good, would be so much of an increase that could have an impact on their entire squad and in their entire season. I think Mihajlovic is a great improvement for that. So fingers crossed.
Who do you think is gonna partner Romagnoli at the start of the season, at least?
Well, Eli is the starting centre back for Fiorentina, from what I've read. The 21-year-old kid. I mean, like I think I tweeted about it actually. It's interesting. Like Milan's starting formation, I think it's like overall rating on FIFA's like 71 and 68, which is just terrifying. But I
Good thing
think as far
FIFA isn't real life, right?
what? This is don't ruin my dreams as it is, man. Like let's just keep that in the dark for now. But yeah, I think Eli's going to be the projected starter for now, and I think it's his until someone else takes it off him. The thing is it's I'd like to think the more optimistic version of myself says, well, it's obviously a clear representation of Eli's maverick-like talent, but I think it's more of a side note to how bad Zapata Mech says. I don't think he trusts us. I think he would rather trust someone that's likely to improve than someone that's at the very least just going to be okay, decent. So I think it's going to be Eli until he fucks up or anything like that. Pardon my French, but that's the way it is. I would rather see a young kid there than Mexes anyway, who continually makes me angry every time I see him. Just stepping out on the field, just his hair, his tattoos, his smug little attitude. I'm just not okay with any of it. So Eli is the favourite at the moment, along with Deschilio on the right back slot, which is a nice touch for me as well.
It's good to see Milan actually getting younger. As a Juventus fan, clearly I would love to see Mexes and Zapata partner each other, but as a fan of Serie A in general, and I don't hate Milan, I've said this many times, I'd like to see Milan getting stronger because I think a strong Milan and a strong Juventus are what's necessary for Serie A to really push forward. But Eli, I think, is going to be really interesting to see how he and Romagnoli, especially if they can mesh well together and push forward for Milan's future. That's huge for you guys. DeSiglio has so much talent and so much potential. It'll be great to see if he can actually make the jump to consistently showing his talent. And like you said, I think the best signing is so far Mihailovic. His passion, his fire, his knowledge is crucial for a team like Milan to steer them, and hopefully he's the one. I don't like to see you guys changing managers year after year. That's so much turnover, but I think it's been rough years. It's been rough days in the past couple years for Milan fans, but I think there's some hope for optimism, and if you guys sign Zlatan, good lord, Milan might be set on fire.
I think it could be there. I'm not holding on to any hopes of fantasy. I'm retweeting Sky Italia quotes in the hope that it leads somewhere. But I'm very much aware that it's a hope in the wind. But I thought this in 2010, but we're in a very different position with a very different set of circumstances. PSG appear not to be as stupid as Barcelona were in 2010, and definitely aren't as stupid as we were in 2012. So it's a different scenario. Obviously, Zlatan takes on his own. People say, oh yeah, he's 34. We're just talking about how great Closer is, and he's 38. How great Luca Toni is, he's 37. So I don't think the age thing comes into comparison. I will throw this out there. I read an article today that claimed Paul Pogba is the best player in Serie A right now. I'm starting to think that might be the case, but I think if Zlatan came back to Milan, he walks in as Serie A's best player without a shadow of a doubt. And having that player in that team, with Mihailovic, with a decent structure. He's not coming back to the last year's Milan team that was essentially just 10 nobodies chucked together with one of the most famous shirts in world football. It wasn't that at all. He comes back to a decent structure, and the idea of him playing in that number 10 in his advanced age could be very, very tantalising. We'll see. If he lives up to his word and actually says that the Champions League doesn't interest him as much as the preoccupation with people actually seems to think that it is, and he loves Italy and he hates France and his family want to move back. If all these conspire together and he does actually say, I want to go, then it is feasible, and it is it's just a fascinating idea with this young Milan side with Mihailovic, and then just put Zlatan in the middle of all that, along with all the other storylines. It is just fascinating. It just wonderful to think about, especially getting that derby as well. The Inter Milan derby becomes just a completely different game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it changes the face of Serie A a little bit when you have such a personality coming back to the league. You said, I mean, he's 34 years old, but Zlatan's never been a player that's relied on his pace. He's still the biggest player on the pitch, the strongest guy on the pitch, one of the smartest players. We've known this for years. His technique, everything is absolutely incredible. And to see him in that 10 spot, like you said, behind Baca and Luis Adriano would be a lot of fun to watch. I know people would tune in every week to see Milan play if Zlatan is on the pitch. Adam's got his eyes closed. What are you thinking over there?
I got a lot of grief from Milan fans at the start of the summer.
I remember this.
I made a couple tweets. I'll hold my hands up. I made a couple of tweets, and it was, have Milan got money to spend? Will they spend it properly? Will they invest in a proper coach? All that kind of stuff. And after the last 3-4 seasons, to me, perfectly valid questions. You sit here 2 months later, they've all been answered. Yes, they've suddenly, bizarrely got some money that they didn't have before. Yes, they've allowed Galliani to spend it. Yes, he's gone and invested it wisely. They've got a really smart squad. Yes, they've appointed a proper coach for the first time since they sacked Allegri. And everything looks perfect. It's a very, very good squad. It's a very, very balanced team. My question that remains now is, what if? Romagnoli is a fantastic player, a fantastic prospect for the future. He's not the greatest centre-back in the world right now. The comparison to Nesta is there at the right age, but it's very, very early to say that. He could be fantastic. What if he isn't right away? You're going back to Mexes and Zapata, and that's a recipe for disaster for me. You take Romagnoli away from that starting 11, and any other combination of Milan centre-backs is frightening. And the same with Eli too. Romagnoli and Mexes is still somebody on Mexes. Romagnoli and Zapata is still somebody on Zapata. It might work. It could be fantastic, and I genuinely hope it is. Serie A needs a strong Milan. Juve need a strong Milan, to be perfectly honest. Without a decent team to push them, Juve have always been at their best when Milan have pushed them all the way for the title. You look back through history, anytime Juve have been good, Milan have been right there snapping at their heels, and it's what you want to see. You have to be healthy. It's easy to say, oh, fuck Milan, but no, it's you want to watch them. You might say that about some other teams, but with Milan, I genuinely don't feel that way. And the other what-if question I have is with Mihajlovic. He is a superb coach. He's proven that in his career so far. He's got all the right ideas with Milan. My only question about Mihajlovic is something Sam alluded to, is his Inter past. If there's a few negative results, will the Curva Sud still back Mihajlovic when he's an Interista? And what difference does that make? I mean, hey, that might make no difference. Galliani might say, well, tough, he's our coach. Berlusconi might do exactly the same. They might back Mihajlovic. But what if? Yeah, you just have to wait and see. And again, it's me asking questions about Milan, but they're genuine questions. And this is the frustrating thing is, yeah, you can drag up a tweet from 2 months ago and say, no, look, we've got some money. Yeah, you have. Were you convinced of that 2 months ago? And I don't think any Milan fan, hand on heart, can say, I expected all of a sudden Berlusconi to start spending, Galliani to start spending it on the right players, them to appoint the right coach. And they've done it. Awesome. I love it. I think it's great. I genuinely do think that's fantastic. And I hope that Milan finish second in the league.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. I'm glad we've got that on record. I'm going to refer that. That's lovely. That's warmed the cockles on my heart. I'm completely with you though. Like with the Juventus Milan thing, there's a
second too. Awesome.
I wanted to finish. Man, I'm not even in that. I'm not even in the title conversation. Like I'm not even entering myself in that. I would love us to finish in the Champions League positions. I mean, oh, Jesus, even third just seems wonderful to me right now. They were 10th last season. Just think about that. You know, I'm with you on the Juventus Milan thing. Like think about it a decade ago, as Aaron was talking about with the parity. But like, when it was Juventus with Nedved and it was Milan with Shevchenko and Kaká, like, don't we want that back? You know what I mean? Like, imagine if you took Real Madrid out of La Liga and it was Barcelona winning it every single year. People would be bored. People would be annoyed. You need the antithesis. I'm completely with you. And there's no better historically than us. We've been the European team. You've been the domestic one. It's a nice balance. Both northern cities. I think it just works well for Italy in general. Yeah, I'm completely with you in every aspect of that. I love to see Juventus do well when they weren't doing so well in the dark days before Conte took over and the title challenges and all that sort of thing. I hated it as well, seeing Juventus 7th with Quagliarella as their best striker. It just, you know, it's just not the same, is it? You know. So I'm with you there. Exactly. Fun memories of when Pirlo played for us, right? Like, remember that? Like.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't even sound right.
Man, I've
Next
just
thing you become is clean shaven and stuff. What's this nonsense?
Exactly, and they're perfectly valid questions, and you had every right to ask them because at the time the questions were perfectly valid. They're still really valid now. Like where is the money come from? It's still a question that no one really knows the answer to. With this Mr. B sort of thing, I read a headline on Gazetta that he hasn't actually given any money yet, despite the fact that he said that he's going to. No one really knows where the funding is coming from. So far, it's Berlusconi's dipping in his own pocket on the expectation that the money will then be sort of reimbursed. It's clearly a pride thing at this point. The pressure's coming in. The question with Mihajlovic with regards to his the past, I think that's one of the main questions that I never really actually considered until you brought it up. It could be very interesting. One of my ones is that I think I'll give it an over-under about 3 weeks before the Berlusconi-Mihajlovic spat. I think that's coming soon because they're too big of a personalities. Right. He's already made as well because Mihajlovic has made demands. Like he hasn't been like the yes sir, bring in whatever you want. I'll just coach whatever. I'm just happy to be here. Not that attitude whatsoever. He's turned up and be like, I want Romagnoli. Oh, how about this guy for 20? I want Romagnoli. How about this guy for? No, I want Romagnoli. You know what I mean? That's the conversation he's been continually having. He's pushed Aliani back to Roma, and Soriano's another one. You know, sorry mate.
No, not to interrupt, but I think that's exactly what Milan needed. You needed a strong personality to come in.
Completely with you.
This is what I want. I don't want this guy that's kind of like a Romagnoli. I need Romagnoli himself. I don't want a bargain bin Romagnoli. I want him. And for two, you have to have a strong personality to be successful in that Milan club because of the personalities that are already there. And I think it's a good sign that you have someone coming in, putting their foot down and saying, this is how I'm going to do it. I am the coach. You're not coaching from the dressing room. You're not coaching from bunga bunga parties. This is my team. And I think that's a great sign for Milan fans to see this coach coming in and doing that.
I completely agree that this had to be done because we talk about like how the absence of leadership and he's come in and created one. You think about all the previously Milan were very easy to coach when it was Nesta, when it was Gattuso, when it's Zambrotta, when there's this endless stream of veterans that know how to play, how to train, when to turn up, where the system. I mean, like you tell Gattuso how to play in a midfield three. The dude's been doing it for 15 years. It's not an issue. You don't really have to coach him. And I think that was a good thing for Allegri to walk into as a young coach, and one of the many reasons why they won that title is one, it was a sort of diluted league without Juventus and Inter recovering from the Mourinho hangover or whatever. But at the same time, they had a great team that was really just able to just play in the system that was set out for them and do that. You can't do that now. You're not walking into a Milan locker room of 10 to 15 years ago when you just say same again, boys, and everyone knows exactly what to do. You have to. Some of the veteran players are also players that have been cast off from other teams. You're looking at Jeremy Menez is one of your most experienced, talented players. That's not ideal, really. So you have to come in with these sort of visions of recreating the leadership. Mauro Tassotti his role has been changed for the first time in a very long time. I don't think the effect of that has really been analysed in great detail. You look at how that's going to take onto the locker room, and he's coming in, like you said, he's coming in and says, I need this guy, I need this player. Fair enough, but people are making jokes. Oh, he's bringing Sampdoria with him. But yeah, Sampdoria was 7th, we were 10th. I don't think that's really a bad thing at this point. Every improvement's a really good thing. He comes in, he says, this is my team, this is how we're going to play, and we're going to create our own leadership from within, by our own young players. Maybe in 5 years we're talking about Romagnoli as a guy with the armband. It could potentially be that case. Same with Soriano. Obviously Montalivo's not going to be there forever. Hopefully he's not even there by next Thursday, to be honest, but we'll see. You know what I mean? You have to start building up the leadership.
That's your captain you're talking about, Sam. Have some respect, man.
Man, no. Well, based on what? Based on what? Like this is Montalivo. Oh, fair enough. Like it was Fiorentina Montalivo. I'm with you. Like great player. The moment he got to Milan, he stopped being that guy, and he came in after the umbrella of the Pirlo thing. And it was what pissed me off as well about it. It was basically an admittance by the club that the Pirlo thing was a complete error, because it's like, oh, we'll go 31 years old, one of the best players ever to play in that specific position, for a 35-year-old dude to play a different role, for him then to leave a season later and then to bring in the bargain bin version of Pirlo, and so it was just nuts. It was just absolutely crazy.
That goes to what you guys were saying about Romagnoli. He is the ideal defender for the way that Mihajlovic plays in his system.
Absolutely.
He likes his defenders to press the strikers. He likes them to be strong in the tackle. Pretty much the way that he was as a player, to be honest. And Romagnoli does that. He's a very. Everyone keeps making this comparison to Nesta, but he's not really like that. He's good on the ball when he gets it, and that's kind of the way that Nesta was. But when the other team have got the ball, he's not sort of sitting back and waiting to make interceptions. He's right up there, pressing the striker, making sure that he doesn't have time, making him rush, making him make a mistake, and then taking the ball away. And he's very, very good at that, and it works with Mihailovic. And as you were saying about when Allegri came and he had all these players and he didn't need to explain what to do because they knew, that's what he's got in Romagnoli. He's got a guy who goes, you know what you're doing in defence, just go do it. And that's perfect. And he's only going to get better at his age. You just hope that he can cope with the pressure of playing for a Milan. And to your other point about making the leap up the table from mediocre to good, I think that helped massively in the teams above them that have weakened this summer. For all we talk about the Milan club strengthening, the two Genovese clubs have weakened considerably since last year. You've brought Sampdoria's best players to Milan. Genoa have sold their best players too. I think Milan are better on paper than Torino anyway. Fiorentina just look a shell of themselves, to be honest. And that's a massive leap up the table already, just by a small improvement. And then you've got Lazio, as we said, battling with Europe. We don't know what to expect from Napoli. There's a very real chance that the two Milan clubs can go from mid-table, I don't even want to say mediocrity, because I think that's a little bit of a compliment to how bad they were last year.
With you, man.
They find themselves. I think both clubs, if I'm being realistic, I think both clubs should be aiming for fourth place and accept a place either side of that. If you get third, amazing. If you get fifth, okay, we go from there. It's a huge improvement from last year and a massive leap forward in quality that'll just, and that sends out all the right signals to players across Europe. It's, yeah, we were 10th, but now we've got 5th. If you come, we can be 3rd, or we can be 2nd, or we can be 1st. It's making those steps, and it's not trying to run before you can walk. If you're expecting a title challenge, I think you're going to end up sorely disappointed, and I think you're just deluding yourself. If you aim for that 4th space, and if you get 2nd, if you do mount a title challenge, awesome. But I think the realistic aim for both Milan clubs has got to be go for 4th, and if you get 3rd or above, or even 5th, that's still huge in one summer.
Completely with you. I'm completely with you. I think for Milan to be a title challenger, they need something better than at least Juventus and Roma. I don't think there's an area of the pitch that they're better than either one of those two sides at just yet. I think if Ibrahimovic does come in, then like I said, we're having a different conversation. Then the attack becomes maybe one of the best in the league, depending on how you rate Dybala and how you rate the Dzeko appointment. I love the Dzeko appointment, but even so, you're still having that conversation. The midfield doesn't compare. That's where that's where the difference is. Soriano, Bertolacci, great players, but we're not talking about Pogba. We're not talking about Marchisio, De Rossi. These sort of players where it makes a difference. But I agree. If we get 5th at the end of the season and Mihailovic is kept on and they make a similar sort of investment, I'm not expecting like 100 million again. But a similar sort of investment to bring in the next step, to bring in maybe a full-back, another defender, a centre midfielder again, then I'm cool with that. Just any improvement, and I think they are going to be better than last year. But as you were saying, it's hard for them to be worse.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Napoli briefly. They are the dark horse, the kind of big unknown this season. When Maurizio Sarri coming in, how do you guys feel about them this season? What do you think is the case with this Napoli team? They've still got Gonzalo Higuain. They've got Marek Hamsik kind of playing his more preferred role. He was kind of out in the woods last year under Rafa Benitez. But how do you guys feel about Napoli this year?
For me, they've replaced Gorkan Inler with Mirko Valdifiore, and that's another one of those. He knows exactly what the coach expects. He's key to that system. Perfect player for Maurizio Sarri. Much like I was mentioning with Milan about the what-if question, to me it's exactly the same with Napoli. If Sarri can replicate what he did at Empoli with vastly superior players, that will be a scarily good team. That make no bones about it. Sarri was amazing last year. He's a fantastic coach, really intelligent, tactically absolutely perfect. Got his game plan right more often than not, and was undone because his players weren't as good as the other teams who he was losing to his players. And there's no shame in that when you're a newly promoted side and a tiny little team like Empoli, with all due respect. Now he comes to Napoli. Can he cope with the egos of those players? Probably. He seems like a smart enough guy. To me, it's all the minor distractions. If he can adjust to that, he's never been a Serie A coach before last year, and now you're taking him from Empoli and dropping him into Napoli, which outside of Juve, the two Milans, and the two Roma clubs, is the highest pressure environment in Serie A. And how do you cope with that? If you look back to last season, what did Maurizio Sarri have to do to get his face on the front page of one of the big Italian sports newspapers? He had to get a win against one of the big teams, and that was it. If he got a win against Milan at San Siro, the papers would be talking about him. At Napoli, they're going to talk about him every single day. They're going to be demanding his time every single day. Whereas before, if Empoli were playing Sassuolo, nobody really cares what Sarri's got to say. If they're playing maybe against Fiorentina, yeah, because it's a local derby. But very few times throughout the year is there a demand on his time. Very few times throughout the year is he under pressure to win. He's now under pressure to deliver every single Sunday. And just like with a player going from a small team to a big team, that's huge. And there's nothing in his past that says he will do it, nothing in his past that says he won't. He's got to go and show that he can adapt to that surroundings. And then he's got to convince guys like Higuain and Callejon, who've been to World Cups and played internationally and played in the Champions League, played at Real Madrid, that he is right. And that's huge. If he can do all those things, they are a very, very good side and a team that will threaten the top of the table. If he finds himself like Gigi Maifredi back in the late 80s, early 90s at Juve, where he'd done it at a small club and he tried to replicate that, and the players were just like, really? Nah. Then you're in the same position and you're going to slide down the table. It's intriguing because he looks on, for all indications, that he's a fantastic coach and could be a great signing by them, but let's see.
I'm completely with Adam. There's a lot of questions there, but I think what benefits him going in from making the transition is the fact that he's the antithesis of Benitez, and that didn't end very well. So I think it's always a good thing for the predecessor to be completely different, for you to be completely different from the predecessor, so he can take advantage of, well, you don't have to listen to what I say, but it didn't really work out last time, did it? So you may as well, right? And I think he comes into a situation where Napoli have always been better when they really play this sort of counter-attack pace, underdog style mentality football. And I think Sarri can just go straight into that, and he can play Hamsik in his preferred position. I'm really excited about what I think he can do for Insigne. I think that could be a really, really cool thing. I think he was talking about playing Callejon as a support striker behind Higuain, which maybe stops their attack getting a little bit isolated in the big games. I think that would be a good thing. I think they scored over 100 goals last season, and I think that in that department, provided that they put all the pieces together, it's okay. What Sarri is going to bring them is defensive organisation that Benitez couldn't do. They have enough players there to make a relatively decent defence to be able to push through the table, and the goals will keep coming, as far as I'm aware. If he gets it all together, like Adam says, they are one of the most talented teams in the league, and they could make it a 3-horse title race if it does all figure out. I'm very excited to see how it works. I think the Allen signing from Udinese is a really good one. I think losing out on Inler when probably just before the real dip of his career is going to happen, I think that was shrewd. I think Valadifiore is another good idea. I'd have liked him at Milan, so I think he's a good idea for that Regista thing. I think there's a lot of improvements there, and I think if all the other players that are already there that are very talented make the leap, make an improvement, like Hamsik returns to being one of the top 5 best attacking midfielders. Like we were talking about him in a couple of years in the Ozil, in the Fabregas conversations just 2 or 3 years ago. There's no reason why he can't return to that in his right position. Higuain, once again, arguably Serie A's top striker right now. There's just so much. Apart from at the penalty spot, that's just mean.
Come on, someone's got to make that joke.
Absolutely, yeah, it might as well be you. I'm here for the popularity. I'm playing the bullies, victimised Milan fans, so I'm not going for cruelty at the moment. But I think Sarri meshes well with what their squad's good at. Their mentality might work quite well. He's clearly a fantastic tactician, and you look at Napoli last year and say they're great at the front, they're awful at the back. If he just solves that problem, then surely 1 + 1 is 2, right? So they might be okay. I think they're going to be pretty good this year, so I'm riding high on Napoli.
Now, I wouldn't be a good and unbiased host if I didn't bring up this on the Juventus side. This is Massimiliano Allegri's second season, and now at the beginning of the season, we've seen a spate of injuries. We've got Sami Khedira, who can't really blame that one on Allegri. We've got Marquisio out injured. We've got Morata out injured. Kojo Asamoah is still out injured, but clearly on the way back. Should be back in about 3 weeks. Now, is this Allegri or is this just misfortune? I'm gonna go to Sam first because he's clearly got a lot to say about this.
I'm not enjoying this at all. I promise. I'm not enjoying this in the slightest. It's just, it's like I remember being a Milan fan under Allegri, and you hear the same sort of things. I think this is the most important season in Allegri's entire career, because I think this is the season where he actually proves whether he's a great manager or not. Like we can say, yeah, well, he took over the Juventus side and took them to the Champions League final. Fair enough, he did do that, but this is still a really, really good Juventus side, and he took them one step further. He had a better understanding of European football than Antonio Conte does. Antonio Conte didn't really adjust his tactics that used to dominate Italy with the regularity. I don't think he quite worked out the European. Obviously, probably knows that, but I don't think he worked out how to adapt his players in that way. Allegri clearly did. But this season, he's not walking into the side of veterans that he did this time last year. It's not same again, boys. He does have to make some tinkering. And the second season at Milan, these things did start happening. Some of the veterans started coming off a little bit. Some of them started going elsewhere. He started playing players that was not quite fit. He started rushing players through training methods. There started to be questions about it. Like, if it wasn't for the Zlatan Nocerino partnership, Milan really wouldn't have been in the title race, especially in those last couple of months. It was really shaky for a while. And you do wonder, even with all the quality, how he does work out in his second season. And I think we're going to find out the measure of the man, the measure of the tactician. Obviously, you guys, man, I loved Allegri after the first season as well. I'm just going to say that. I thought he was great. He was young. He was vibrant. It seemed to work really, really well. But Milan in 2010-11, you can draw some similarity between the last Juventus side. Lots of veterans, lots of quality. We'll see how it works out from then on. I'm not sure how about the training thing, but that has been a consistent thing. You talk about Milan the last couple of years with the injuries, especially in midfield, especially with the hard-working players. It has followed him about a little bit, and since he's left, it hasn't been as bad. So we'll figure out. I think this is the year where Allegri actually finally proves me wrong. I've been an Allegri skeptic for a very long time. So we'll see how it works out. But I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a smile on my face for a reason. That's all I'm saying.
Adam?
I don't know. I kept quiet the whole way through that. I'm going to disagree with almost everything you said, to be honest.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think pinning what happened at Milan on Allegri is a stretch.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
You didn't exactly get better when he left. Let's look at it that way.
No. But
I think you've got. It's easy to go. Okay, it's easy to look at it and say the veteran players left. He's got injuries. Blah 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 blah. It's like Milan. I think it's too simplistic for me. The three players who left did so for three very different reasons, and it's not like Galliani selling all Milan's best players or letting Pirlo leave on a free. It's nothing like that. So I think that's different to start with. And then the injuries, you've got to look at who's injured for me, as much as it's just injuries. Giorgio Chiellini is back fit again now anyway, but he's not exactly known for being fit all the time and staying fit. Andrea Barzagli, who's had problems for the last 2 or 3 years, he's injured, but he's back again now. Sami Khedira is exactly the same. Alvaro Morata got injured in pre-season last year, did the same again this year, which that leads me to question what he's doing over the summer rather than to question Allegri. I think it's too. Once is okay, twice I think that's a little bit too much of a coincidence. And then Marchisio, fair enough, Marchisio's got an injury, but it's a torn thigh muscle. I think putting that down to Allegri is. I think that's doing him a little bit of disservice. And then I'd also point out that in his second season at Cagliari, he won Serie A's Coach of the Year over everybody. So he has had a good second season before. Juve are not Cagliari by the same token, and the demands are very, very different, as I was just saying about Sarri. I think, as you rightly said, Sam, his tactical flexibility over Conte was huge last year. And I think the players that have come in give him even greater freedom, which, you look back to what he did at Milan, and maybe that's not the best thing, allowing him to change and play however he wants. But whatever system he chooses to go with and whoever the opponent is, he's got the perfect blend of players for that. You look at just who he's got in attack, and between Mandzukic, Morata, Zaza, Dybala, Pereira, maybe a trequartista on the way or another more attack-minded midfielder. That works in any way he chooses to configure them. He's got the tools at his disposal. if Massimiliano Allegri fails this season, it is entirely on Massimiliano Allegri. There are no more excuses after that. You can kind of explain away what happened to him at Milan. You can kind of explain away what's happened over the summer. But I think what happens from now until May is entirely on Max, because Juve have given him everything. They couldn't help the players who walked away, but they couldn't have replaced them any better either. I think if they can get somebody like Draxler or whoever they're talking about for the number 10 role, they've kept hold of Pogba. They've added guys like Alexandro. You cannot ask for better. And here you go, Max. Over to you.
I think you're completely right there. Completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think, Sam, you hit the nail on the head. This is Allegri's most important season of his career. This is make or break. This is where we either put him in the could become world class category, or maybe he's not who we thought he was. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Now this we'll go to the final part of this. Who are you guys predicting for top four in order? We'll start with you, Sam, and then we'll go top five as well. Let's go top five. We'll go to you, and then we'll go to Adam.
Okay, I've got Juventus at the top for obvious reasons. I think that despite my skepticism about Allegri, as previously mentioned, I still think that they're far and away the best prepared, the best tactically, just the best team. It's just period the best team. I think Mandzukic, Dybala, if they had an attacking midfield there, it's even more over than it is right now, as far as I'm concerned. I think it'll be closer. I love the Roma boy of Dzeko, and I'll get to that in a couple of seconds. But I love Juventus at the top. After that, I've got Roma. I think Dzeko has a really good shout to be the Serie A top scorer this year. If they work out the midfield behind that, could be a really dangerous combination. But I think the defence will let them down, whereas Juventus can stifle out results that Roma just can't right now. For third is Napoli, because I'm not doing it just yet. I'm just not. I can't do it to myself. I can't get on that bandwagon just yet. I've got Napoli simply because I'm a big fan of Sarri. I'm a big fan of their talent. I think player for player, they're the third best team in Europe, third best team in Italy. And he said Europe, good lord. But they're the third best team in Italy, and that brings them all together. And I think if they sort their defence out, they're a better overall than who I have in fourth, which is Milan. And I think I loved Inter's transfer window, and I think there's even more what ifs about that. If that works out, I think they have a higher ceiling but a much lower floor than Milan. I think if Jovetic and Icardi works out, then that could be terrific, and that could be top three just almost on its own. I think Hernandez is great when it clicks. I think Palacio's another one, but I think there are too many question marks with Mancini as well, how he's all going to fit it together. I think Kovacic, obviously for 35 million, is a great deal, but could still be a bit of a loss. So I've got Milan in third, then Inter in fourth. After that, I've got Lazio. I'm predicting the closer drop-off, and I'm sticking with that. Then I've got Fiorentina. So that's I've even gone past it. I'm so sorry. So my top five is Juve, Roma, Napoli, Milan, and Inter, just ahead of Lazio.
No worries, gone past it. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Adam.
I think Juve will still win the league. I think they've taken advantage of the gap that they've created over the past few years to retool and regroup and start all over again, pretty much. But keep the same defence and keep two great midfielders in Marquisio and Pogba, and then everything in front of that has changed. I think that's still enough. I think, as I said about Roma, I still have doubts there, so I'm not convinced that they can close the gap completely, but I think it will be much closer. I think Juve will take a back step in Europe. Europe's hard to predict because it's entirely based on the draw. I think they'll still get out of the group stage, but after that, I think it's going to be much more difficult because so many of the players who they've brought in are so inexperienced at that level. In a couple of years' time, I think this team's got a much higher ceiling than it had before, and that's fantastic because there's a lot of room to grow. But I think for right now, I think getting out of the group stage and adding a fifth league title is a pretty fine accomplishment for this season, for everything that's happened over the summer. I think, agree with Sam, I think Roma will still be second because I think they're still markedly better than everybody else. As I say, I think with Salah and Dzeko, if they get those guys to work on the pitch, they can push Juve a lot closer and actually mount a title challenge for longer than 10 games, which would be huge. Third, fourth and fifth is really tough. I think there's three teams who I'd put really close together, and that's Milan, Inter and Napoli. And as I said the whole way through, there's what ifs about all three of those teams. For me, I think Inter have got enough to finish third, but by the same token, they could just as easily finish 5th. I'm going to go based on absolutely nothing, Inter, Napoli, Milan. That could be completely upside down. Take those 3 any way you like. I'm convinced by my top 2. Outside of that, I really do find it difficult to say with any certainty where those other 3 will finish. I think they will definitely be the top 5, though, all 3 of those.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you guys both for the reasons you stated. With the top 5, I'm going to actually rearrange Adam's 3, 4, 5 though. I'm gonna put Milan in 3rd. I'm gonna put Inter in 4th and Napoli in 5th. I think the arrival of Mihailovic at Milan is huge, and I think this last week is crucial. If you guys can make one or 2 more big signings or important
about
signings,
6'5" to be exact.
yeah, around
That size, that'd be nice.
From Sweden, maybe. I don't know. That changes a lot. But honestly, even with the sides the way they are, I don't trust Roberto Mancini. And I like.
But it's like in general, like you wouldn't lend him your car or something.
I wouldn't lend him
He's
my car.
Interista. You're not supposed to trust him.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Mancini at all, and any chance I get, I would put him down. I hate his hair. I hate his face. I hate his club.
Talk about Mancini, man. You can't trust that guy. It's not gonna happen, man.
Yeah. I wouldn't let him date my daughter. None of that. So I'm putting Milan in 3rd, but like you guys said, I think that 3rd through 5th it's a toss-up. It would be interesting to see if Fiorentina can get their life together and do something, but I don't think so. I really don't think they're cracking that top 5 at all.
No, I don't think so at all. I think just to butt in there with Fiorentina, I think they've lost their best striker in Gomez. They've lost their best player in Mo Salah. They've lost their coach. That team's just a shell. And we're talking what if. Fiorentina's entire season depends on what if Giuseppe Rossi can stay healthy. And man, that's like bigger than any other what if.
What if?
Man, I'm wearing a Derek Rose t-shirt and I'm more depressed about Giuseppe Rossi. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, that's the comparison, isn't it? And I think just one other guy who we've not mentioned at all, really, I think, and really deserves it, is Mauro Icardi. Speaking of, you won't let him date your daughter, Aaron. It must be a theme at Inter. But to be honest, he could well be the best striker in Serie A, and he's phenomenally good. And he's massively underrated too. Serie A's top scorer last year, tied with Tony, and he is so good, so good.
Yeah. So I think that'll just about wrap it up. Again, let me thank Adam Digby and Sam Lewis. You can find Adam on Twitter at ADZ77. You can find Sam at Sam Calcio. It's nice and simple for you. Again, thank you guys for having us on. We're going to try to do this a little bit more regularly. Shout out to Greg Simaluka. He wasn't able to join us today for our Roma representation, but hopefully next time we'll get him on. Thank you guys for joining us. You can find us on Twitter at The Special Ones, on Facebook, on Instagram. I am Aaron West. You can find me on Twitter at A with 3 Ys _ West, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Cheers, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.